Hello and welcome to another episode of the Complete Agent Podcast, where each week we get together to talk all things estate agency. As always, I'm joined by my industry colleagues, Ian Storey and James Kendall. My name is David Warburton, and this week we've got a special guest, Mr. David Lindley. Say hello, David.
Hello, David. I can actually do that, can't I?
Yes, you can actually do that. For clarity on this podcast, David is going to be David and I'm going to be Dave. So that'll make things much easier.
And we sound so alike, Dave, that no one will be able to tell the difference otherwise.
No one will be able to tell the difference. You're absolutely right. You've got very northern tones. So, yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, thanks for coming on, mate. Really appreciate it. For everybody who's been listening, we're in the middle of our sort of partner agents mini-series. We've invited a few people on so far. So it's really great to have you and get your thoughts on that side of things. But as we start every week, it's a very innovative thing that we do, and we ask everybody how their week's been. So I'm going to go straight to Ian Storey. Mate, how has your week been?
Good week. Sales are flying. We had a superb January in terms of completions and listings. So if we have that every month on average, then we'll hit the new target that we've set the team for the year, which is a stretch target from last year. So January was really good. And then really, really good levels of sales this week. I'll keep it short and sweet, really. It's good. We've got valuations at the level we want, and some really nice stuff coming on. So things are good. Yeah.
Have you just Storey? While you're talking about targets and things that you've done, how long have you haven't been on street over a year yet? Have you?
No, 8 7 months.
Okay, because we've been on there, I think, nearly 3 years now. And what's interesting is when I was looking at reporting, when I was going to say, how the week and the month's been, etc. Because we've been on street a little while now, we can look at what it's like year on year. Obviously, best ever month for us in January, 20 sales, average of about 10 grand fees. So, can do the maths there. But what's interesting is looking at the percentages. We're up 41% total fees year on year for January compared to last year. Interestingly, sales only up 10%. The number of sales we did in January last year, but our average fee was up massively, and our average sale price was up 41%, and our average fee was up nearly 35%.
Yeah,
it just goes to show, like, year on year, it just keeps growing, and targets that we've set, and it's just interesting that I never really looked into it before because obviously we weren't looking at the reporting on street because it wasn't there. But it's really nice to have in your dashboard just to be able to go, right, last year, what do we do without having to go through a spreadsheet and work it all out.
It motivates the team as well, doesn't it?
100%.
And James, your average fee going up, is that because of property prices or that you're pushing the percentages up?
Both. So, I mean, we were, 4 to 6 years ago, we were 1% band. Especially in COVID, we'd try and get 1.25% if we could. Maybe 1.5% on a really good day. But now we're all about 1.5% to 2%. Like the core business doesn't do any less than 1.5%. I didn't do any less than 2%. And it's brought it all up. So our average fee as a business is around 10 grand, which obviously it balances out. I think I spoke to you off air about the 34 grand sale that we've done recently, but then also equally, the guys in the core business are still doing, 300-400 grand houses at anywhere between 5 and 8 grand fees for the lower end. So, yeah, in general, it's kind of we're dragging the business up. We're obviously we've got, again, a whole other podcast we had for another time about brand split, brand stretch, but we're stretching the brand, moving everything up, having a rebrand that's gonna happen in April, and there's a few things we're implementing then. But the whole idea is, to kind of continue to stretch up and move up. So, rather than our average price being 500 to 600, I want to try and get that to more 7 to 8. But I mean, still 5 to 6 is a nice place to be. But then, drag the rest of the business up to 2% plus.
One thing that we're really focusing on this year is the front end service. And I know I keep banging on about this every week. But as we've grown and we've had, these amazing results, there's the odd one or two agents who are just trying to copy our marketing a bit. They're still not consistent and they're not doing videos to the same level and that sort of stuff. But I've really got to focus on the front end, basically the calls that come in, the emails that come in and how they're responded to, and that being as good as it possibly can be. because that starts the relationship off, doesn't it, with the client, and that's what they remember you
just
for.
on that, mate, and I know I've talked to you guys about it in private, and obviously we're going to have a tech mini series at some point. But one of the things that we're implementing at the moment with Luke being able to answer the phone and the numbers feeding straight into the CRM.
Yeah.
Being able to, rather than saying, thank you for calling James Kendall, thank you for calling Stories or whatever, being able to go, oh, hello, Ian. That whole, it will throw people, won't it? Hello, Ian. Oh, hello, David. How can I help you? And I think it's just that extra kind of personal, but also not just for your clients, but for people you've already got on the database.
That's the point. Yeah.
It's that personal touch. And one of the things that we've started doing is playing about with our notification settings and stuff like that as well. Because I do agree that front end, how you deal with clients and also how you deal with like buyers, etc. Because buyers become clients, and there's that stat that gets thrown around about how many people that I think Simon was talking about it on his pod the other week. How often people sell with the agent they bought through.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, anyway, my week was pretty good.
Can I say that tech mini series that we're going to have is going to be really fucking short?
It'll just be JK talking.
It'll just be me and Storey won't be on those.
Yeah. So you've got to turn on your computer. Is that what you've got to do?
Yeah. We're the guys that sit in the call centre saying, "Have you unplugged it and plugged it back in?"
Yeah.
That'll be pretty much all you, JK.
You'll be like that Zach Galifianakis meme when all the numbers are going around his head in the casino, right? But yeah.
Anyway, JK, how has your week been?
It's been good. We started off well. Not as well as last month so far. We've still got a fair few sales in the bag. Pipeline's absolutely just bursting at the moment. Had loads come through. It's like one of those 10p machines at the moment where you put it in and it's all a load's about to drop over the edge, which is really nice.
JK, just to interrupt there on that specific point, when you're flying and you're selling loads, and suddenly you have a week like me so far where you've not actually signed any up as listings. You think, fuck. Yeah, the pipeline's amazing, but now I've nothing to sell. And I know, I'm sure we've all thought that all the time over the last 20 years of being an estate agent, but it's still true, isn't it? You have these amazing periods of sales.
But also on the flip side, though, with the pipeline being good, and obviously if you've got a decent amount in the bank, and we had a good year last year, we're sitting on really good reserves, we're in a really healthy position. You're not tempted to break your
never
your fabric. When someone says, well, can you do it for 1%? There's no part of you that goes back and go, well, we'll meet you halfway. Let's do 1.5 or something like that. It's no, mate. It's 2% or see you later.
Yeah,
and it's nice to be in that position, because we talked about commerciality the other week, but it's just nice to be in that strong position. And I just think you keep doing, it's cliche, isn't it? But if you follow the process, the proceeds will come, won't they? So, but
you have to go through that. You have to go through, I think, that difficult period where you might have to lose a couple, but it makes you go right back to what we always talk about, like looking at yourself and what you do. I've won one this week that I'm really happy about, which is it was like a 2-hour valuation. They often are, aren't they? But long valuation, it went really well, very thorough, talked through everything. They've obviously brought us out on the back of a letter and what we do. And then we get to the end, and right at the end, she said that one of her closest friends was the valuer at a competitor of mine. I thought, have I just wasted 2 hours here? What am I doing here? Did you just want another opinion? But anyway, I got a call this week getting the instruction, and he sort of said, we appreciate that you're much higher in fee, but at the end of he actually said at the end of the day, it's 2% of nothing if you don't sell it. So we value the input that you've given us, we value the professionalism, value the quality of the product essentially. So ultimately, I think when it comes down to having to negotiate, personally speaking, I think there probably is a weakness somewhere that's stopping you getting that top level, and that's when it always comes back to how do you look, and then how do you present and things like that. I mean, we've discussed it to death, haven't we? But
one thing just on that, Dave, that just shouting out Gatesy again, I heard on his pod the other week, was talking about agents that their commission, their butt commission. So they're 1.5%, but they're 2%, but I can do it for so, and it's that trust gap, isn't it? But and rather than saying, I think it is quite interesting. I've obviously refining my process, and I've got to the point now where I'm just like, 2% plus VAT, and that's what we do. But the kind of the premise of the conversation was, it's 1.5% plus VAT, and because we do this. So, for example, you give you an 80% chance of exchanging contracts. We achieve 4% more than the average agent, and da 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 da. So rather than it being, 2%, but I can do it for 1% because you've got the same dog as me, and then you go up with another agent. For anyone that hasn't listened to the podcast before,
one thing that I've used recently, it's rare that we get asked to negotiate on our fee now, but one thing that I've used recently instead of negotiating the 2%, was to include our one with negotiation.
Yes,
so
I've done that as well, yeah.
That's worked quite successfully. So obviously we have a separate service where we charge for negotiating their purchase based on what we get them off the price.
Yeah,
and I've used that recently to secure a £1.5 million listing at 2%.
Yeah.
There was, one and about the fee, taking age, and I thought, I'll just go for it. I just said, well, I'll include that onward purchase negotiation for you. And that
what do you normally charge for that?
That went really well.
What do you normally charge for that?
We charge 25% plus VAT, but we get them off the price.
Yeah, okay.
So we're incentivized to get them as much off as possible. Obviously,
I do two things.
They end up paying marketing price or more. They don't pay anything. What do you say, JK?
I was just going to say that I do something similar. I do 20, but I also do
chicken
of the purchase.
Why not 25?
Huh?
Why not 25
Why not 25?
Yeah.
Why not 100% of what
you
say?
know why? Can I tell you why? Let me explain what we used to do. We used to charge, Perry's idea originally, we used to charge 20% for clients, 25% for non-clients, 20% for clients.
Yeah.
And then I thought, if they're going to pay 20, they'll pay 25.
Yeah.
So we just put 25 now and they pay it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, sometimes I do 1% of the purchase price. Depends on what it is, because I would say that if I'm looking for you off market, so if I do a buyer campaign where I charge them £1,000 up front, so they'll pay £1,000 up front towards letters and sending the letters out, but it's that and then 1% of the purchase price.
Of the purchase price.
And what I say to the people that are selling on the letter is that it's a commission-free deal, which obviously gets a good response because people are like, I'm not going to pay any commission.
Yeah.
And everyone's a winner. Right, so should we get into it, Dave? Do you want to reintroduce this week's guest? And
absolutely, yes. So, Mr. David Lindley, thanks for coming on, mate. Really appreciate it. So, as you know, we're doing this mini series about partner agency, and you are heavily involved in that. And I think you can add a lot of value, and it'd be good to get your thoughts today. I think before we start, I think you're very, very well known in the industry, but for those that perhaps haven't come across you just yet, do you want to give us a bit of background about yourself?
Yeah, sure. And thanks for having me on, chaps. It's really nice. It's nice. We've done a podcast each on the away leg individually, and then you've all ganged up at me at once. So that's quite nice. But no, thank you. I really appreciate it. So my name's David Lindley. I run a licensed network of premium estate agents called By Design. And I'll they'll probably come out in conversation what that is and how it works. But yeah, that's me. I'm having a good year so far. So it's funny. I'm a super sub today because you were supposed to have Simon Cowie on, but he's called off sick because he can't really talk at the moment. But I don't know whether it's good timing or bad timing, but you're talking about how your week's going. We've had quite a big week this week with something that we've done internally. And I was talking to my wife about it last night because nobody really knows about it apart from people in By Design and a handful of people outside of it. And I said, well, I'm on the second best podcast in the industry tomorrow. Shall I talk to the guys about it? And she was like, yeah. It was one of those answers, you only ask the other half something and they not really, you're just asking someone for the sake of asking someone something. And she's like, yeah. I was like, cool, thank you. That was all the justification that I needed. So yeah, we've had a really good week. So shall I explain to what By Design is and I can kind of make some sense of what on earth I'm talking about? Is that a sensible thing, or do you want to dive into something first? Before
you do that, just tell us a bit about your background. So,
yeah, sure. So
what were you doing before By Design?
So my background before By Design, I was running the Fine & Country brand So that's a similar network, longer established of premium agents, and typically that's where they will have a core brand, if you like. So you guys talk about brands split and stretch. This would be for the split option, as is by design, really. But then you would take locally to me, there's a company called Thomas Morris, for example. They'd have Thomas Morris and they'd take Fine & Country on top, and I was running that network. Left there back in 2020, actually, and then set up by design with Mark Burgess and Matt Giggs. You guys probably had on at least one or two on the podcast, I'd imagine. Have you had either of them on the podcast?
Not yet, no.
Oh, there you go. Could be two good guests. But we set that up, and then we're growing by design across the country, and maybe a little bit further afield, actually, as the conversations come up. So yeah, that's me.
Perfect. So talk to me about your, obviously, I don't know if you've heard the ones that we've recently had, but there's quite a few partner agency models at the moment. There's some perceived as good, some perceived as bad. There's some that get a bad rep. What's your opinion on the whole industry at the moment? Because you've kind of, I think, obviously when I went on your pod and you talk about my background, and JK's the same, Ian's similar, but JK and I in particular come from that corporate background. And I think a lot of the time we talk about having that really good education, like coming into the industry. And one thing that I think is my personal opinion is that you can't just enter this industry and start selling homes, personally. I think that you need to go and get an education. And it's always been that I've always felt that coming from a corporate background is a great education. I don't know whether that's changed a little bit now over the years, because I think the industry's changed. But you've kind of got your corporate, estate agents, you've got your independents, and you've now got an army of self-employed estate agents. So how do you, I suppose doing what you're doing might answer this a little bit, but how do you see the industry at the moment?
So it's a little bit old now, but I think 20CI said that there had been a 500% increase in the market share of self-employed agents from, I think this was 2019 to 2023. But I would agree with your point completely. And it really surprised me. There was a conversation I'd had with someone, a network of premium agents, and they were taking on a self-employed agent who I'd ended up speaking to. And she had never been an estate agent before, was doing this for the first time, and then going into the premium end of the market doing it. I thought, this is irresponsible to everyone. This is irresponsible to her, because that is going from, right in at the deep end of everything, I would say, being self-employed and doing it in the premium end of the market. And it's unfair to the customers to chuck someone their way that might have got in through a well-known brand. So whether it's a corporate education or not, I completely agree. I think it'd be crazy for someone to go in and just do self-employed, having certainly never been an agent. And if you're doing it in the premium end, I think that to have someone around you that can help teach you through that, you could be a really good agent in the core market, let's just call it, and want to get into the premium, which is understandable. I think all four of us be on the same page that is the right thing for agents to be doing. But to help you on your way and to make as few mistakes, you want some help and guidance through it.
I do think when you say about that, like letting somebody loose in the premium end of the market with no experience, it's a bit like, if you had a garage and someone bringing their Ferrari in and just letting somebody with no experience service the Ferrari. And you just wouldn't do it. It sounds ludicrous, doesn't it? Like to even think that you would have a go at that. There's plenty of agencies that will go, do you know what? £3 million house, you crack on. And the sellers obviously see the brand on the outside and go, well, it must be reputable if somebody's working there. And then that person's got. And I think the thing is, sometimes people think what we do is really easy. Anyone can stand in front of a camera and go, welcome to the Grange. Well done. You done, completed it. Estate agency done.
Why did you pick one of my houses then? Noticed.
You sold the Grange?
Yeah, I have sold the Grange.
Have you?
Incredibly well, thank you very much.
The council estate in Bury. You sold it.
It is Bury.
Bury.
Sorry. But yeah, I find it incredibly interesting that people are just prepared to go. And I'm not sure where somebody would actually stand on an insurance standpoint on this as well. It's not something I've ever looked into. But could you imagine if there was probably a professional indemnity nightmare, with the insurance? Have you? So this person sold your house and they're negligible. tell me, what experience do you have in the estate agency? None. Oh,
funny. Funny you should ask that.
Yeah.
No, I think it's crackers, isn't it? The other thing, Dave, to come back to your question, this is about the industry more widely. Maybe this relates to partner agents, maybe it doesn't. But this is something that I found really, really interesting. So I actually had an opinion piece published for the first time in Estate Agents Today over the weekend about this. And I think you guys are probably like this, the top 10 agents in the country, the top 10 brands for selling premium homes, so this is stuff over 750, every single one of those top 10 lost market share last year. And I was like, whoa, I think that's an underratedly interesting fact. And it's not that one of them is taking it off the other. It's just that pie is being split up and shattered. Yeah. And I think it's the things that maybe, dare I say it, all of us on this call are doing that are sneaking away and undermining and eroding those classic big boys. Some are corporate, some aren't, but it's fascinating.
On that point, so obviously we do some work with Gatesy. That's the third time I mentioned him now, so that's £300. But I asked him to look at the figures for us in our market share last year in the areas, our core areas that we serve, and we grew 53% last year in £1 million plus in the £1 million plus market locally. Nice. I think that's only going to get, and that kind of correlates with what you were just saying, David. That there are lots of the smaller independent agents now that are taking a slice of that premium pie. Yeah. And it's there for the taking, because just interestingly on topic, and I was kind of speaking to you about this off air, valuation I went to yesterday, the chap said to me, do you not need to be a big agent? Do you not need, an international office? Do you not need this, that, and the other? I said, well, if you look at the previous agent that you're on the market with, they advertise themselves as having a London office, and how many viewings did that bring you? And he kind of said, oh, okay, fair enough. And he said, well, why? He was asking me what I really loved about this appointment is that whenever and this is probably a whole nother pod, when I go and meet somebody, I do things like put their postcode into company's house, I put their name into company's house. Like, I know who they are in Facebook and LinkedIn, etc. I get a really good idea about who they are, what they do in their background before I actually meet them. And he'd also reverse Uno'd me and done the same thing to me. And he went, so what's the Complete Agent podcast then? And I was like, oh, what?
Wow.
And I said, look, full disclosure, we've got two businesses, me and two industry colleagues. We offer content marketing, training, mentoring to agents in the industry to help them in the premium markets. And I said, by instructing me to sell your house, you've got somebody that's at the top of their game that is helping other agents do that. And, we've a lot of experience in this market, and we help agents across the country. And, we're part of a network, because that, is important to him. We've got, Ben in central London, Chelsea Way. We've got Ian and David up north. We've got the whole country covered. And also we've got other avenues as well. We've got networks into the kind of football and celebrity industry. We've got informal WhatsApp groups and stuff as well with other agents in Surrey. So we can really get you kind of covered. And I think it's really interesting that, all of the smaller agents kind of, there's power in numbers, and the collaboration. What I find really interesting is there's so much more collaboration between independent estate agents now than there was 10, 15, 20 years ago, even 5 years ago, arguably. Yeah. But also the power of being independent compared to being, a Knight Frank or a Savills or something like that. If they want to collaborate with somebody else, that's got to go through so many channels and boardrooms, etc.
This is it. Yeah. And this is sort of what in the article said exactly the same things as that. It said, like, you've got real corporate structure, committee after committee to do something, where a smaller business can be agile, decide something in the morning and do it in the afternoon. Yeah. And you've got that whole is a separate conversation altogether, but the valuer and negotiator structure, and quite often in the premium market, you get the same trusted individual from start to finish. And then I think the reason for that collaboration, probably social media is a lot of it, that you feel like you know people. So it kind of preheats the networking, where if you see each other on camera and doing things like the complete agent, whatever it might be, people feel like they know you before they know you. So you can collaborate a bit more. And that's where, especially the bigger corporates, on social media, a lot more locked down and restricted, and they can't experiment with things or be as prevalent and build a personal brand on socials quite as easily. And I was a little bit controversial in the article I wrote, because I said that in fairness to them, they have to have those strict policies in place. In the news yesterday, I think it was. Do you remember in the Euros there was that guy from one of the big corporates had that really bad tweet? Do you remember that? And that was a real
about the penalty takers.
Yeah.
What did he do?
He was racist, basically, about the three
Twitter.
guys. So when Rashford, Sancho, and Saka. Something racist on LinkedIn, I think it was.
Yeah, and it was part of a big corporate, and obviously there's blowback for them on it. So they kind of have to do it, but equally, as long as you're sensible and all the rest of it, then being a smaller agent, being independent means you can do what you want, can't you? You can experiment and get on with it. You're not waiting for sign off from a manager who doesn't understand social media in the first place.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting.
So I'm interested in asking a question. So, where does, apologies if you kind of covered this off already, but where does, if let's say, for example, somebody, I don't know, and we've talked to EXP and people making the jump, what made you go for by design, and where does that fit into the kind of agency picture for someone? So if someone's thinking about, jumping ship and being self-employed, why did you choose the premium market for a start? To sort of specialised in, and why would somebody decide to join by design?
Yeah, sure. So we aren't. I will make it relevant in a second, but we aren't actually like a partner agent, self-employed structure typical model, really.
Yeah.
What we are is essentially a premium estate agency in a box for somebody. So we charge a flat monthly license fee. And for that, our licensees have an exclusive territory, and they get marketing, brand, national advertising, international advertising, portals, CRM, technology, training, PR, everything that they would need to have the brand and the infrastructure behind them to run a premium estate agency. And then they can build their personal brand on top of that. And that's really exciting. So I'll just give an example to kind of make this relevant. So, and that could be it could be for a company that wants to do that split. Or it can be for an individual who wants, and it seems to be increasingly this way, but for an individual who wants to have their own premium estate agency business. So to give an example and make it kind of real, my neighbour here in territory is a lady called Marie Fritz. She's a fantastic agent. Again, might be really interesting guest for the pod. But she was a self-employed agent for somebody else and had hit that ceiling where she was earning well, giving away a big chunk of her commission to somebody else, and couldn't really see the future in it. So we had a conversation, I explained by design, and she said, yeah, that sounds great. And so now she comes in, she's, obviously with our model, keeps 100% of her commission. And in year one, she basically doubled her earnings from where she was at her previous brand, if you like, working there.
Yeah.
And she's grown a business. But the exciting thing now is that she is the one taking on partner agents, not us. So just to explain what that means is that we have they're like master licenses, if you like. So Maria's a master license for the whole of Northamptonshire. And then she's just taken on a second agent, actually. Actually, she's looking to expand her territories as well. It's going really well. But she's taken on her second self-employed agent. And for her, and she decides whatever the split would be with them. But that's what's interesting for her, is that instead of it just being a job that is, whether you're employed or a self-employed agent, if you're the one just doing on your own, it's a job. She's building a business there with some asset value, with some one day retirement income for her as well, because she's building a team there of 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe even more if she decides to expand, self-employed agents under her. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So it's slightly different then. So and so you said that obviously there's kind of two ways people can go, kind of estate agency in the box, bolt on for your kind of mid-range business, but you're seeing a lot of and one of the agents I've got, I've talked to Marie a few times actually on social media, because she's obviously very close by to me, and I messaged her a few times and said I really like your video, because I really like how she, I say, conducts herself, but also like markets herself as well. Like I'm always a big fan of high-fiving people about what they do. And I think she presents really well. always look at a marker of, would I put my house on the market with that agent? And having listened to her on a few pods, I would feel very confident if I was selling my house in her area that she would do a great job.
Yeah, it's like the living room test, isn't it? Would you instruct them if they're in the living room? Yeah. Just to say one thing on that, this is mad, but shows kind of what we're talking about earlier as well. That power of social media. So she's taken on self-employed agents. She's just taken on a second one, and I think I'm right in saying this. Is a lady in her area that has been following Marie for 5 years on socials.
Wow.
And never really interacted with her. Never did much. Maybe occasional like or something like that, and then Marie said, okay, look, I want to take on agents. I want to build a team here. And even then she left a little bit and then reached out. But for 5 years, she'd sat there just looking. Marie didn't know her. She was just looking, just watching in the background. And you never know who, I guess that's the power of doing all the stuff, is that you never know who you're going to attract. And the people that you do attract are probably going to be the right people because they know whether they like you. And the chances are you'll probably like them if they like you.
Do you know what, having just said that, I had a meeting yesterday. I went for a coffee with an architect yesterday, randomly, who messaged me last week and just said, we've been following you on social media for like the last 3 years. You don't know us, you may have heard of us, but we've worked on a couple of projects that you've sold and a couple of high-end houses you sold. Like, could we meet for a coffee and just talk about how we could work together? Went for a coffee yesterday, and they just kind of dropped into conversation. We've got a couple of clients that have just got consented sites within the local area, and we'd like to put you forward as the agent because we've seen your marketing and this, that, and the other. And I said to him, what do you want out of this? And they said, oh no, we just like what you do, and we think you do a good job. So I was like, I wasn't going to talk about that today, but just remind me when you said that. I just thought, it might not come to anything. People blow smoke sometimes, and it never comes to anything. But it's a strange thing to get somebody all the way over to your office to have a coffee with and say, it was almost a little bit like an interview. Is this guy the real deal? Asked me a few questions, then dropped that, and I was like, yeah, brilliant. So
it is a great point, though, that, JK, because, again, people, I think, get caught up in likes and shares and video views and things like that. And I think a lot of people give up early. They'll stop posting because they're not getting the interaction, or they think they're not getting the interaction. But the secret is just keep being yourself, keep being authentic, keep pushing what you do. People are watching. And, I had a similar situation sort of middle of last year. This developer guy had been watching me, and we had a really positive meeting, and it's progressed since then. So I do think it's a really valid point. That I think it's really important. Personal brand is massive.
It's like the letters.
It's mad how.
Well. Sorry, go on, Dave. Go on. No,
I was going to say it is.
You crack on.
Now the tables are turned. That point though, Dave, about making a personal brand, it's amazing how few people do it. Was it on £400 now? One of Gates's podcasts when they're talking about the amount of people on LinkedIn that consume rather than create, and it's almost 99 to 1. Like, it's just crazy. And I think a bit and we've all probably been had experiences where you have something positive happen in business because you're putting yourself out there and people know who to come to for the thing that they want. I would say that doing it, the hardest bit is just the first few because you hate it and everyone hates it. And there's this reverse honeymoon period. Really what it is all your mates taking the piss out of you. Like the first few videos of stuff that you do, and then they get bored of taking the piss out of you. They'll find something else, but you have to just get through that and push past it because it is worth it on the other end of it. You just have to ignore your mates for a couple of weeks.
And the personal brand side of it is really key. It's massive. And I think, again, if you are a company owner and you're trying to protect your brand so much that you may be taking the limelight away from any of your employees and things like that, I think it'll have the reverse effect. Because I think people do that. The corporates were exactly like that. You didn't have any. It was obviously pretty much when I was there. It was before social media blew up, but as it started to come in, none of the local branches and stuff like that had access to their local social media accounts or things like that. We had company guidelines where you weren't allowed to say this, that, and the other, or post and what have you. And it was all about trying to obviously protect the brand. I can understand that you don't want any negativity being put out there, but I think you do. People buy into people, don't they? You can. You go to one. If you go to a chain of restaurants, you might have a really bad experience in one, and a really great experience in the other, but they're owned by the same people. It's just about who is running that restaurant. And it's the same with our job. If I send a crap valuer out to value somebody's £1.5 million home and they get a really bad experience, they're probably going to have a bad view of Burton James. They're not going to have they'll probably have a bad view of the person that went, but they will also get a bad view of my company. So
we always say as well, don't we, Dave, just on that point, that the letters that we send out, which get us into the doors of the higher value homes, it's not just about one piece of your marketing, is it? It's about everything.
Yeah. So can I just say on the letters, that was the thing I was going to jump in and say a minute ago, because you've got a really good point here, Ian. And
you're stealing my point. I think you're stealing my point.
No, I'm not. I'm adding to. Just when you're talking about, doing things on social media and videos and giving up early, a lot of people do that with direct mail. They send one lot of direct mail and they go, well, that was rubbish because no one inquired. But the one I went to yesterday, he'd been, it was a new area. We'd only been sending there for 18 months. And he called me out because of the letters. And he said, it's the first time I've ever had anything from an estate agent, A, of substance that actually educated me, and B, I didn't have to correct any typos. And we talk about the kind of people that you meet. When you're meeting high level execs and high level marketing people, they will pick up on typos. They'll pick up on like incorrect spacing. They'll pick up on. I mean, this guy was at the top end of his career. Really high up in a senior position in a really big company. You might be listening to this podcast, so I don't want to say too much. But we always charge 3.5% plus VAT, no matter what the listing is. I'm just kidding. But the point is, you've got to be consistent with everything that you do. And the marketing updates and keeping consistent with those, that instant gratification isn't always going to come. If you could just send one letter and get one instruction, well, everyone would be doing it, wouldn't they?
The only thing I would say, there is a caveat to it, in my opinion. And it goes back right to the start where we always say, how do you look, and make sure that your branding's on point, that everything that you're doing is on point. Because I do think there will be a disconnect between a brilliantly worded letter and then a shit website, or your listings are not nice. They'll turn off at that point. But there might be a question.
Again, consistency. I'm sure I've said that word 5 million times since we started this podcast. Consistency is what most agents, I think most people really, is just human nature. I think.
Agreed.
I think that's an interesting question I've just thought of in my head, actually, for you, David, is that, so, obviously we talk about red tape in big corporates and brand guidelines. Do you guys have anything in place by design this is the brand standard? So you can't take photos on your phone, you can't do this, you can't do that. Is there like a set standard for what everyone has to do?
So what we do is we protect the brand, but the brand itself, and that's the bit that we're quite strong on, just in my history of branding, and with F&C as well. We had a big court case with Spicer Hut and all this sort of crazy stuff. So that's what we're really strong on protecting. And then if you're working with the right people, you don't have to worry about them taking photos on their phone or something like that. Yeah, it almost goes the other way. So we've got this situation. It's quite funny actually, where Simon, who's supposed to be here today, in Warwickshire, and then there's a James who's running South Devon, and they're almost competitive with each other about one particular field, which is an interesting field of marketing anyway, which is brochures, crazily enough. But they're almost trying to outcompete each other with how good the brochures can be. So it goes the other way. Actually, policing that from the bottom up doesn't ever seem to be a problem. But that's just, if you're working with the right people, they'll be doing the right things.
Because what I find interesting in this area, there's a well-known premium agent in this area and close by. There's one in this area that I've got to know really well, and he's a really good guy, great agent, like wants to do things properly, like good photos, good video. If I go up against him in the living room, like it could go either way. He's a good agent, but then equally, and where he does lose out, and I have told him this, and he curses. There's another licensee in close by, shall we say, of said premium brand, who has also listed 3-bed semis on that brand with cars on drives, iPhone photos, no floor plan, coming soon. And I've said to him, I've said, look, I've used against him in the lounge. I said, well, that's great that you want to go with that international network. I said, but you want your house to look like this? Yeah, and it's there. It's all to see. And he can't do anything about it. The bottom line is, it is what it is. But I just think that is so important. We talked about it with Alex last week about protecting the brand, and you're absolutely right. If you've got the right people, then you don't have to police it from the bottom. If everyone's kind of on board and rowing the same way, you don't need to worry about that. But it was something that it just popped into my head because we'd had the conversation before, hadn't we, with I think with Alex and possibly somebody else about consistency across the brand.
Question for you, David. So what do you think the biggest challenges are for self-employed agents now? Because again, going back to kind of what we discovered before, I think a lot of people are making the jump because they naturally, if you're in a good corporate in particular or something like that, you're listing lots of properties and they're seeing what's going through the books and their exchanges, and they automatically think that they are responsible for bringing in all this revenue. So they'll think, do you know what, I'm going to go and do that for myself, so it's all my revenue. And before you know it, they're complaining about being sat on the laptop at midnight because they're working so many hours to do all the things that they forgot that just goes on in the background automatically, or they're struggling maybe to even get a listing. So what are your thoughts on that, and what are you seeing? And are you seeing it with any of your guys?
I think sort of yes and no, and I was going to come on to us in a second, but to try and answer your question as best I can, because to a degree I'm a step removed, and to a degree I'm not. But I think there's three things really. There's making sure they've got enough financial backing to make the leap and do it. There is the oftentimes there can be exactly what you're saying, Dave, that mismatch between where the businesses come from. You can be really busy doing valuations in an office and have nothing to do with the generation of them in the first place. Yeah. And the third thing that Alex said, and I really like Alex, and he made a really good point about it, is that element of loneliness. Like, think what you want about high street offices. They've got a time and a place. I wouldn't rush to ever open one myself, I think, less out of the cost and more just of manning it and rotas and parking and Saturdays and all that sort of stuff. But there is something nice about being around people and having a work environment like that, I suppose. I think those would probably be the biggest things, I think, but could well be wrong. To take that question and then kind of apply it to a lot of people that I speak to about the premium market, generally speaking, I don't know because you must speak to, I don't know who's in the complete agent, but it'd be quite interesting to see what you think about this. But a lot of people that I speak to about it, be they companies or individuals really, but mainly applies to companies, they don't have the people to do it. And it would be disrupting their existing team. So, for example, there might be a really good operation, and they'd think about, okay, well, our top lister we could promote into doing the premium stuff or something like that. But it's quite often been the challenge for them is having the people for it. Everything else makes sense. The market conditions are there. The competition isn't there quite often. And I think, yeah, this is the right thing to do. So this was as sort of said at the start, it's been a bit of a big week for us. So here's a complete agent exclusive, if you like. And if we don't get any press in the industry next week, I'll blame you guys for it. But we've so nobody really knows about this really, apart from everyone in By Design, a few other people, you three, and now everyone who's got an iPhone that listens to the complete agent. But anyway, we've just taken on a new member of the team at By Design. And he's a really lovely guy called Paul Quintanilla, and he has been working to recruit self-employed agents. So it's probably relevant for this conversation as well, for F&C in the Midlands. And he recruited about 60 of them last year. So he's very good at what he does, and he's joined us. So what that means for our licensees, come back to this partner agent thing, is that we have an in-house recruitment function now for them to grow their teams of self-employed agents. I don't know where this is. I'd be really interested to hear your guys' take on that for your own businesses, but there is a drive in that direction. I think, especially in the premium market, I think it makes loads and loads of sense. And a lot of people in By Design, that's the journey that they're on. Not everyone, but the journey that they're on is they want to have a team of self-employed agents in their business so that they can, make more money or take a step back or have an asset they want to sell or something like that. But that's what we're in the throes of launching this week and next week, really. So good timing and bad timing for the podcast. How much do any of you three have much in the way of self-employed agents in your businesses, or is it a bit more traditional setup, or how does it work?
Just me, isn't it? At the moment, I'm the only one that's got the partner agent, and so I've got one partner agent, really good partner agent, Richard, who was on 2 weeks ago. But we've had probably, I think it's 4 partner agents in total since we've been doing it, and we've never actively recruited. They just kind of landed in our lap, and I'm guilty sometimes of saying yes and figuring it out later. But what I have learned along the time is that you can't take people on. People with sales experience isn't the same as having people with agency experience. But also, it's very much about the person. You can take on a good agent, but if the agent is a complete knob, like, it's going to do you more damage as a business. That it's great that they're banging in a result every week, but if it's toxic for the business, then what's the phrase? It's better to have a hole than an arsehole. And whilst we are, I'm very looking at the partner agency model. I'm very keen that, like, for Rich, for example, that he is very much a part of the team. Because self-employment and partner agency can be lonely, and I'm very keen that if anyone is wanting to join JK as a partner agent, then they are very much part of the team. They can come into the office, be a part of the team. We'll go out on meals together. There's interaction, and because that's Rich kind of said it on the pod. It can be lonely. You have got to generate your leads, and having me to go out for lunch with, go out to lunch with a couple of the team and saying, right, we're thinking about doing this. They're part of the business, but they're in their business within the business. And to answer your question in a really long, convoluted way, yes, I do have a partner agency in the business.
My view is, I don't have one yet, but it's very much an avenue that I want to go down. The three of us have been discussing it quite recently, and I don't want to just jump into it, because I think, to me, if someone's good, their natural instincts will be to want to go and have a go themselves, and I would never begrudge somebody that opportunity. And I had a guy who worked with me in my corporate days for years. And then when I set up my mid-range brand, he came with me, and he was absolutely fantastic. And he's a really great guy, and he's now doing really well as a self-employed agent. I wish I could have kept him. When looking back at and giving him
the violins in the background now, Dave.
Yeah, please. Can I just take a moment as well? I'm going to cry. No, I wish I could have kept him, because he is great. He's brilliant on camera. He was brilliant in the office. And, obviously he just wanted to take that leap of faith. But I don't have that platform yet to support somebody on a self-employed journey, or I didn't, and we're working towards it. So what I'm thinking, and what I'd like to sort of look at setting up is that platform where a rookie can come in who's maybe coming from another industry, or they might be a bit younger, who can train and sit behind the desk for maybe 6-12 months, get their experience there, move into that kind of valuer manager role, if you like, and go out and value some mid-range stuff, maybe take on some premium stuff in the future. And if employed is for them and they want to continue down that route, fantastic. But I also want to have a structure where they can move across into self-employed if that's what they see themselves doing. Because my outlook on self-employed, and I know a lot of self-employed agents now, if they're really good and they're good at lead generation as well, and they're prepared to put themselves out on social and stuff like that, which is absolutely integral to what they're doing, they're going to get busy and they're going to need support. And I want to give them that support. And from what I'm seeing outside looking at partner agents, they're struggling with that. Some of them struggle with lead generation, a bit of confidence maybe on social media, knowing what to do. But then they struggle with everyday structure and things like that. So I think giving them that support network is really, really important. And, we've all been through it. Building businesses, building it's almost like being self-employed, really, isn't it? But, you're building it, and so many mistakes to get to where perhaps we are today. And I genuinely think there's an opportunity to give someone a 5-year head start. That's how I genuinely feel. But with some models, it's a numbers game. I think there was a stat saying something like only 20% are succeeding at the moment. The 80% will just die off within the first year. And you touched on something before about financial backing. You said some people are going to need that. I think the general consensus is you're going to need probably at least 6, probably 9 months backing before you even consider going into a self-employed role. And I don't think a lot of people get that, and I don't think they give it too much consideration. I think they just see the sexy headlines that you can be on the golf course 3 days a week and just list 2 houses and make $100,000 a year. I think that's what people genuinely see. But
you have to do the graft.
Perry Power made a great point the other week. I'd never really thought about it when he was on the pod, and he just said that if you want a lifestyle business, don't become an estate agent. And I thought, do you know what? You're absolutely right. It's not. You can't just walk into this industry and make a lifestyle business. You've got to build it.
If we were going to do it, we would really try and be really selective, David, with who we took on. And I've no idea how that process would look or how you go about it, because everyone interviews well, don't they? But
I also think Perry made a good point the other week as well about, if you're trying to expand your business, employed or self-employed could be the way to go sometimes. It doesn't have to just be, plop a partner agent in that area because we're weak in that area. And
no,
if you've got someone that's good, employ them, because, if you want to take on a new area and someone that's really good and proactive in that area, well, back them and pay them a salary and get them to do it. And if they are no good, they don't do, they're not delivering, then, well, see you later.
Just on that note, James, as well, because from the other way around as well, like, the self-employed stuff is for some people, it's not for others. But if you were just on LinkedIn or something, 99.9% of the content you're going to see is going to be extolling the virtues of being self-employed, because a lot of people that are saying that have got some sort of skin in the game, some sort of downline, some sort of thing or something like that. No one's out there talking about the benefits of being employed either. There's fors and against and everything, but if you went on socials and saw, you'd just see one side of an argument completely, which is a bit of a challenge for those with more traditional setups, because I would imagine that their teams are going to be on these networks as well, thinking, oh, should I, shouldn't I?
Yeah,
and it's hard.
I think the thing is, what's interesting is there's lots of different avenues, and there'll be lots of different people that are attracted to different things. So, for example, I think there's a camp that obviously are choosing by design because it fits their requirements and what they want to do in their long-term plans. There's people that are joining existing local agencies that they've bought into, and they all want to be a part of that because they buy into the people behind those businesses and what they do. Then also equally, there's people that are choosing the likes of EXP, where they've followed, maybe talking about LinkedIn. Alex mentioned he'd followed, I can't remember who it was, one of the guys from
Ben.
EXP. Ben, sorry, yeah, he'd followed Ben on LinkedIn. So it was about the people rather than Ben was with ABC UK. He would have gone to ABC UK, and it's all about the people. And I think obviously a lot of people will gravitate to you and Matt because they like what comes out of your mouths. Same with us and ours if we go down that route. And it's a people business, isn't it? It's not a property business; it's a people business.
No, that's quite right. And this personal brand thing, I think that everyone talks about personal brand, and it is important. But I think there is also a really strong case for having a good business brand, a good corporate brand as well. But it's personal brand first. Like, the personal brand is everything. If you can support that with a really strong company and look and feel and the consistency with how the website looks and the properties are presented and so on, that's a winning formula. Then you've got everything. But it's personal brand first.
I think that is absolutely bang on, David. I really do. And something Ian touched on as well, you can interview loads of people and they'll always come across well in the interview, and you kind of think, well, I'll take a punt on them, and you'll never actually quite know. But I think if you've got that great combination of fantastic brand with that person who's willing to put themselves out there and build their own personal brand within your brand, I think it works for both parties. Absolutely.
I was thinking that when Ian was saying about how do you find the person because they interview well, you would almost, I'm not saying it's as easy as that, but you'd almost know the people that you would want because you would see them putting themselves out there on socials in the first place. Like James, you were saying about the guy locally to you as well. Like, that's sort of a pre-interview selection criteria. Is that if they're a complete nobody, you're going to have to bring them on that journey of creating a personal brand, which for some people can be a lot harder than others as well.
Yeah, I think Chris Watkins said it in the past when I've read some of his stuff, but he's talked about, if you're currently working, I think he said once, if you're currently working in a branch and you're looking at getting out, start building your personal brand now. Yeah. Don't wait. Start building your personal brand now. It'll take you so far when you move on. And I think he's absolutely right. I think if you've got, I've spoken to someone not too long ago who'd said, I'm not really on social media, I don't really like social media, but I can do it. I'll do it. And I thought, well, you're a bit late. You need to start. You need to get your brand going. And then hopefully you will, once you've got a bit of a presence yourself on social media, confident you know what you're doing, that'll propel you then when you join. I think if you've not got a personal brand now and you're not out there on social media, you're going to struggle. I genuinely think that.
Just going back to what you were saying, Dave, a minute ago about your adding partner agency into Burton James, it's a really good, if anyone's listening to this, having a partner agency option is a really good team retention strategy, because if you've got someone that, you know, gets to that point where, you know, they want to take the jump, you know, rather, and I think all of us have probably been there, to be fair, to a degree. You know, I used to work where one of my managers, Michael, like absolutely brilliant agent, knows loads of people. We still got on really well now, but he just wanted to spread his wings. And, you know, if I knew what I knew now back then, we'd definitely be working together in some sort of capacity, you know, and move forward. Whereas, like, you know, like you, David, with yours, Dave, with yours, you know, it's a great retention strategy for keeping really good people within the company, but also allowing them to, you know, spread their wings and earn what they deserve and what they feel they deserve. But it's also giving them the taste of, you know, when you're in a branch, for want of a better phrase. And David, you said earlier as well about, you know, lead generation. They don't see what goes behind it. When you're an existing brand and you've been there for a while, and, like, you know, obviously we send our quarterly market updates every quarter, hence why they're called quarterly market updates. Funny that, great name. But, you know, the phone rings as part of that process because of, you know, again, how do you look? But the lead generation strategy is there. You know, when you go out as ABC UK, you know, no one knows who you are. You know, the phone doesn't ring. You know, and I think sometimes, I think a lot of businesses are guilty of this, especially new businesses. My sister-in-law just tried to start up a business, and she posted once on Instagram, "Hi, I've opened my business," and that was 4 weeks ago, and she's had no orders. And it's like, well, what do you expect? You know, But that's the thing. When you're in a business, people think, oh, well, you know, I'll just set up ABC UK and the phone's going to ring. And before you know it, I'll be earning 12 grand a sale.
The same thing will happen again. It'll just be a different phone I'll pick up. And it's just not the case.
Yeah, definitely not the case. So one thing I want to ask, and one reason I was really keen for you to come on as well, David, is that obviously you are team premium markets. You know, you're not interested in the bottom end of the market, selling the flat above the chippy. And something you said something really interesting off air before we started about when people first start, they go into the low end rather than the premium end, and it's like a estate agency on hard mode. Like it would be. Would you mind just like expanding a bit on that? Because I know we talk about partner agency, but obviously you are Mr. Premium, and obviously we are advocating mid to high end premium markets on the podcast. Do you mind expanding a bit more on that and your experiences from speaking to people on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's mainly it's mainly numerical, if nothing else. But just to clarify something, when I'm saying that, I'm not contradicting what we're saying earlier about coming straight into agency and going straight at the top. I still don't think that necessarily makes any sense.
No, of course not.
But if you're in the industry and you're going to do something, you're going to start a business, you're going to go self-employed, you're going to go down that road. I just don't know why you would do anything but go into the premium end of the market. It just doesn't make a minute of sense to me. And you can look at the stats from it. So the next edition is coming out shortly. But Simon Ledbetter does his Voice of the Agent, a big survey getting on for 1,000 agents, and goes into detail with all of the stats and all of the fees and everything. And I'll get it wrong, so I'll just round it and say well over half of all of the fees in the industry, or half of the pounds of all of the commission that anybody earns in the entire estate agency industry happens over £600,000 and above. And then, so you think, well, that's not a niche market anymore.
Yeah.
That is the market. Ironically, the niche market is the mass market. And then where are all the competitors? In the towns and cities and villages, most of the agents are fighting over the scraps at the bottom end, competing on fees, going down market, doing things cheaply, and as a business, trying to combat cost increases, all the NI increases that come in this year and everything. That is just an absolute rat race. Whereas in the premium end of the market, the opposite is true. It's higher value properties, you get higher percentage fees. And as long as you're not going crazy with the prices, there's still a strong demand that they churn quickly enough. Yeah. I always think that 3/4 point of the market up from there as well is a real sweet spot in any market where the customers want to pay for that service, but they're not the grade 1 listed manor house with the roof caving in that no one can be bothered with. Like that's a whole nother market altogether that I'd be just as equally uninterested in. Yeah. But I think two things is that's one why I recommend people listen to this podcast as well as ours, because I think we're singing from the same hymn sheet. Is the first thing. And the second point I've completely forgotten. Maybe it was about our podcast. Probably not. But anyway, I would say it's gone. Yeah, I would. I just don't know why you do it.
I think that's a good point either way, though. You know, if that's where the money is, you know, why would you work twice as hard? But again, it all depends on your business model. We are pro premium market here because that's what we operate in. It's more interesting. It's better paid. You know, and if you look at, you know, your hourly rate, if you're any good at this end of the market, just why would you choose to operate in the low end? It just doesn't make any commercial sense, in my opinion.
I remember my second point. It was that the thing that I said earlier about the top 10 big brands are all losing market share. Like, I think that's because that, you know, you've been extolling the virtues of that for How long have you been doing the Complete Agent for? More than that?
Just over a year now.
Over a year now, yeah.
Yeah, just over a year. You've been doing that, and that will be having an effect on this as well, that you're promoting agents to get into that premium market and take their fair share of that market. But you know, that's those big brands wouldn't want to lose that market share, put it that way.
That is what is really interesting, actually, is that, you know, in the Complete Agent, the difference in members, I suppose it's probably similar to, in some ways, aligns with what you guys at By Design, where you've got partner agents, but then you've also got existing businesses. In TCA, we've got people that, you know, have taken a leap and are very successful, kind of self-employed, you know, 2-person operations, but then also all the way up to like multi-branch, like multi-million pound, like turnover businesses. There's a really good like spread, but what is really good is everyone's aligned on wanting to be the best they can be and operate in that premium space. And I think where we've kind of, I suppose, connected the dots for them is showing them how to market the homes and how it's done, but also providing them the content, because the biggest piece of the puzzle I think missing for a lot of people in the premium end is the content to get through the doors. And I think that is a huge, I mean, I know we all obviously preach it, you know, from a commercial point of view, but genuinely, it's been transformational for all three of our businesses over the last 3.5 years, where we've been sending direct mail between us. And before we started TCA, a year before that, we were doing our own stuff anyway. You know, and it was testing, measuring, refining what works, what's good, and we've got better at what we sent. Prior to that, we were sending slightly different types of letters that were much more emotional, but we've got a lot more data driven and analytical in terms of not only what we do in terms of how we educate clients when you meet them face to face, but also building a relationship and educating, because a lot of the people that we're meeting on like market appraisal appointments are high level executive people, you know, and the balance of how the content is written appeals to both sides, but also equally to the person that picks it up. Because you get two different camps. You get people that say, don't ever write ever to me ever again. You know, they can't even spell interested properly. If that won't actually mean anything to anyone in this podcast that's listening to this. But I got someone sent back to me recently where they said, we're not interested, like, take me off your mail list. Absolutely fine. Save me £1.50. But then there's other people that will read every single time your letter comes out, every single word, every single thing you say. It goes into, we call it bulldog marketing sometimes, goes into a bulldog clip. And then when you actually go to meet them after a year, 2.5, 3 years of getting letters, everything is there in a neat bulldog clip. And they're, I've been getting your letters for the last 3 years. And you're the only agent in the conversation. And despite what everyone else is doing for brand awareness, you know, that for a lot of people in the premium market is the missing piece of the puzzle. And that wasn't really meant to be an advert, but I was just something.
No, I just finally on that, I always say as well, it doesn't matter to me if they are not that statistically driven. I feel like if they pick up the letter, they want to know that their agent is and understand what's going on with the market. It doesn't matter if they don't get it; they want to know that you do. So that's really important. Yeah. But we're coming to the end here, David. I know you need to shoot off. Two final things. I think we've asked everybody who's on the self-employed side of things. Just two quick questions. I think it was, what's good about self-employed agency? What's bad about self-employed?
Let's go bad first and then good, because I feel like we need to end on a positive, not like me last week.
Yeah, just your honest thoughts. You don't have to go in too much depth, but what are your honest thoughts on that?
The bad, very quickly, I think we touched on the sort of the challenges of it earlier, but I think if you're saying what's emotionally bad about it, I would come back to that loneliness thing. So I think it's important to have some sort of network around you, people that are on your side that you can talk to, you can bounce stuff off of. I think that's really important, even just to sort of, when you have an idea and you need someone to almost challenge you on it. I think that's just as important, just to talk something through with somebody, because if you're on your own, you don't necessarily have that sounding board. I think that's what's bad about it, but you can mitigate that if you set yourself up correctly, I think. And then what's good about it is that was the second half of the question, wasn't it, Dave?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
The thing weighing above everything else be the earning potential, especially if you're in the premium market. It is just exponential. You've got to get there, but once you do, and you've built that momentum, crucially, I think is so important in the premium market. Once you've got that momentum, I genuinely have never seen a better way of earning money in the estate agency industry than being in the premium market and having a team of self-employed agents doing it underneath you as well. It's just the best way to do it. Slightly partner agent, slightly not, but I think that's definitely worth the bad.
One final thing from you as well. Obviously, you've been kind enough to get the three of us on your podcast, which is a great listen. And I think you should give it a quick plug. So tell everybody about yours.
Yeah, so you can check out Ian, Dave, and JK on Property Porn Stars as well. So that is a premium property podcast. That's why I think we're probably singing from the same hymn sheet today. We do slightly differently, where we just interview one guest each time on a different subject matter. So I think you guys are much more, or you go through sort of seasons, don't you, on the Complete Agent, which is cool. And we interview one guest every 3 weeks or so. Just had one release yesterday, which is really interesting, actually. In fact, it's taken ages to do it, but from the co-founder of By Design with us, Mark Burgess, who's talking all about AI technology and agency, which is really important. And then actually nothing to do with that, how to think strategically about your business rather than reactively and impulsively on the spot. So give that a cheeky plug as well. Give it a listen.
Great stuff.
Well, a completely different way, actually, to where I thought it was going to go. I thought you were going to ask him what his porn name was.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's do that. That's fair enough.
Porn name, Dave?
Can you give some context behind it? Because it just sounds like we're talking about porn now. So
No, I don't know what you're talking about. You're weird.
Well, let's do that. A bit of context behind why we've just asked that question, and then maybe answer
it. In Property Porn Stars, our really naff closing tradition is that we ask everyone what their porn star name is, because whether they know it or not, everyone does have a porn star name, which is comprised loosely, and I'm not even sure how real this is. Matt once called it an algorithm, and I was like, mate, that is generous calling this an algorithm. But it's comprised of your middle name and your first pet's name. So mine's a bit crap, to be honest with you. Mine is Eddie Wonton. My first pet was a dog called Wonton, because it was small, like a crispy wonton. So that was why it was called Wonton, this great big orange dog. So that's my rubbish porn star name for you.
That's actually brilliant, to be fair.
I actually think that's quite good.
Yeah, the worst thing is that on the very first episode we did that, and Matt probably did this. He came up with the idea for that closing tradition, I think, because he knew that his was great. His is Kevin Tiny, and ever since the first episode, does my
no one's beat that.
No one's beaten that. It's just too good.
Listen, it's been amazing having you on, David. Thanks so much. You do offer loads of value, and if you're not following David, follow him, because he does genuinely offer loads of value. And I think everybody will have got loads out of today's podcast. So thanks so much for coming on, lads. Have you got anything to add?
No, all good. Thanks, David.
All right. Well, thanks as always for listening, and we will see you next week.
Thanks all.
Thank you.